Aloha and welcome to What's Bugging You, brought to you by Hawaii's leader in pest control and the first company in Hawaii to earn the National Quality Pro certification, Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. Now, here's the host of our show, Mike Buck.
Welcome once again into our little den. What's bugging you indeed? It's sort of interesting, as you know. A lot of things are bugging us. And here in Hawaii, we got them all over the place. And it's sort of interesting. Some of you might have learned last time, joining us, presenting our program, What's Bugging You from Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions, is the newest addition to the team and somebody who is not only involved in the training, but hands-on experience in her country in South America in jungles. She is a board certified entomologist, and she is director of training at Sandwich Isle. She does some teaching and she's done some research at UH. And we welcome Dr. Marisol Quintanilla to the program again. And today we're going to talk about some of the things that are in the news and some of the reaction from your radio debut, right? Last week was your first time that we did this.
First time.
A lot of great comments. I think that mainly whenever something gets called to attention, it really makes people aware. And I think that more and more people, based on fear and lack of knowledge, are really worried about these mosquitoes. What is this reminding people again? This mosquito, this particular little mosquito that carries two real problems. One is the dengue fever that we know a little bit about, and this other is something we don't know too much about called the Zika virus.
Well, this is the Aedes mosquito is it's a black and white striped mosquito, kind of looks like a zebra, and that mosquito carries diseases such as dengue, Zika, and even a few others. But those are the most common ones right now.
Okay, now, what if you just ignore this? What can happen to you? In other words, what we learned last time was you were on a project in the bushes in South America, and you actually got dengue a few years ago.
Yeah,
that was terrible.
In 1997.
Does it sort of remind you how fragile we all are to be able to get something like that?
Yes, it hurts terrible. It's called breakbone fever. So it feels like your bones are breaking. Your joints really hurt, and you get very high fever.
Now, how long does it usually last? In your case, how long do you think it was before you contracted it, and then how long did it last for?
Well, after you get bitten by a mosquito, it takes a few days for it to develop.
Okay. Like any other, virus or whatever.
You
right?
don't have any symptoms for a while, and then after a week or so, somewhere until 14 days, you get the symptoms, and then you actually have the active disease.
Which means
for about kind of a week to 14 days.
Which means, if I'm not mistaken, in the case of dengue, if a mosquito bites you during the time that you have that, now he's going to be giving it to somebody else.
He's going to be loaded with viruses.
Yeah.
And he can then transfer to an uninfected person.
In Hawaii, we sort of had a heads up over the last several months about this dengue. We get it. We're alarmed at the number of cases. We know that the state is sitting on the verge of calling this a state of emergency, and if that happens, certain things happen. As an entomologist, you know about these things. Is this number getting kind of scary? I mean, is it something? It doesn't seem to be going away.
Well, in my opinion, the numbers are actually pretty low. So far, it's 248
in the
people.
200s, right?
In many other countries where dengue is a real problem, numbers are much higher than that, and those would be very low numbers, because we are reacting in a very appropriate way, and there's very good mosquito control, and there's a lot of fogging going on in the Big Island. This has not spread like wildfire.
Good.
However, if we did not do anything and we did not control it, then dengue would be here to stay. There'd be enough infected people that it would be
always a problem.
It would always be a problem if we don't do anything about it. And then you'll have, if you get a new serotype coming in, then you will have people having then hemorrhagic dengue if they're exposed to it to a second time second time with a different serotype.
Okay, now in that we've had this increased awareness, does it better prepare us for being able to take steps to look at this Zika virus?
For sure, we need. It's actually, it is the same steps that we need to take, the same prevention, the same treatment methods for dengue than for Zika virus. It's the same mosquito transmitted in the same way. So for sure, being prepared for dengue means to be prepared for Zika.
You know, I think a lot of people, you know, sort of were thinking, "Wait, this can't happen to me." But that's a pretty bad attitude, right? It's like being an ostrich. You got to walk around your property and see if you have a problem with mosquitoes. You know,
well, it can for sure happen. I mean, it. Right now, Tonga's having a problem.
Yeah, explain that a little bit. When you say it's having a problem, we should anticipate some blowback from that because we have a lot of inter-travel from Tonga to U.S., and particularly to Hawaii. A lot of Tongans in Hawaii and on Oahu.
A lot of Pacific Islanders in Hawaii from every island. And I have a lot of Brazilian friends in Hawaii. So there's travel from Brazil to Hawaii. There's travel from just about every Latin American country to Hawaii. All these countries that are having Zika problems have some representative here in Hawaii. So the possibility for Zika to come to Hawaii and become a problem, it's more not an if, but just the when. Yeah,
it's a terrible thought, but you're right. I agree. What are some of the signs that you might have Zika? I mean, you know, right now I think we're looking. Are the symptoms similar to the dengue, or are they different symptoms? What's the difference in the two diseases?
They're much milder. Much milder than dengue.
Okay. That doesn't mean we should relax, though, does it?
No. Yeah. The majority of people that get Zika do not even get sick.
Okay.
I think it's like 80% and don't even have any.
Yeah, so that must mean that they're very hesitant to call it a disaster or a national health issue when it doesn't seem to be as serious.
Yeah, but the problem with Zika is that it, like we talked about on this weekend. Last weekend. It comes with a twist. It increases the chances of babies being born with microcephaly. And it is suspected that increases the chances of babies to be born with microcephaly.
Which makes it a big problem, right?
Yes, also it's suspected to increase the chances of adults to get Guillain-Barré, which is it's also a very big problem.
Yeah. Now that being said, when you talk about places, where it's common, Brazil, South America, some of the Pacific Islands, do people build up an immunity to it after a while? I mean, if you've had Zika and you've recovered, are you less likely to get it again, or can it come back like you've talked about dengue? When it comes back sometimes worse, a different strain.
Yeah. Well, to the best of my knowledge, Latin America did not have Zika in the past. It is a new introduction, and people did not have immunity to it. And it is spreading like wildfire. And more than 4,000 babies have been born with microcephaly in South America. And
that's a terrible.
It's
a
very big
number,
increase. In Brazil, the number of children with microcephaly was in the low hundreds, and now it has increased to the thousands. So it's been a tremendous increase. So that's why I suspected.
For those that don't know, I mean, Brazil is a big country.
It's a huge country.
Yeah, and I'm not sure here in the U.S. that we even are aware of how many people live in some of our neighbor countries in South America. So it's a big population.
Brazil is almost as big as the United States.
Yeah, it's
and I'm not from Brazil. I'm from Chile.
You're from Chile, right?
But Brazil is a big country.
Okay, well, since this is by the way, this What's Bugging You program is brought to you by our friends at Sandwich Isle. Pest Solutions, and they really do have the solution. And more realistically, in the last several months and years, Michael Botha, the founder and president, has made it more and more a management company. It's great to be able to say, well, we went in there and we eradicated everything and it's never going to be a problem again. But that's not really good thinking, is it? I mean, almost all of us are at risk for any condition coming back to you. So we got to be aware, and we got to have a company that we can trust taking care of us.
Well, that would be fantastic, thinking if we could eradicate everything. But the truth is, it is very difficult to eradicate things. It takes millions and millions of dollars to eradicate an organism, and we would have to do it island-wide. Just by treating a house, you can't eradicate it because it will come back from the neighbors, from wherever. So what we need to do is management and control.
And so one of the things we do, and that's why Marisol Quintanilla is an entomologist, a doctor of this, a PhD, and working on a lot of things that really, really matter in an individual thing. So I want to make sure before we move on to the gist of what we're going to do today, and talking about the horrific bed bugs and some of these ornamental issues that we have with pests. Also in the news, and this have been happening for a while, and I don't think it's because they went away, but maybe because we have more cases of this coconut rhinoceros beetle. What is that, and what are the problems associated with it?
Well, coconut rhinoceros beetle is a very, very, very big beetle.
Right, large.
It's a large beetle, maybe as big as my thumb.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, my thumb's bigger than Marisol's thumb, but in other words, it's a beetle as big as your thumb, pretty big.
Yes, a very big beetle.
Do they bite?
It's black. No, it doesn't black, and it has a horn.
Mm-hmm.
It has a horn on the front part, in the thorax. The coconut rhinoceros beetle are a problem because they feed on coconut trees and other palms. Mm-hmm. They have the potential to destroy up to 50% of the coconut tree.
And you can imagine in some parts of the Pacific where that tree is a vital part of their economy. This is a nightmare.
Yeah, Guam is having a hard time with it.
How do they? First of all, have they got a good hold in Hawaii?
They are here in Oahu, but the USDA APHIS and the University of Hawaii is trying to contain the problem. Yep. They're trying to monitor the spread, and they are trying to control. And I think they might still have hopes of eradicating, or at least to have a very good control system so that this does not get out of hand.
How do you first identify the problem, and then secondly deal with it? How do you eradicate them?
How do you identify the problem? First of all, to the best of my knowledge, this is a problem here in Oahu. So there has not been reports in many of the other Hawaii Islands. How do you? But it could potentially get there. So it's good to have eyes out there, so to let the authorities know, so that if they arrive somewhere, the problem can be stopped early. That increases the chances of success. How do you distinguish it? The leaves of the coconut tree, the fronds, will have these angular cuts. It's like an A-shaped cut. And there'll be a very big borehole on the coconut tree.
Okay.
A very big borehole and some angular cuts in the front. The angular cut is actually caused because the larva is like a huge grub, a C-shaped grub.
Okay.
He's feeding on the fronds as it's growing. It's very young.
Okay.
And as it's growing and it bores, it's feeding on the fronds. And when the fronds grows out, you can see these cuts.
Wow, amazing, huh? It is from that. At what point in time does it become life-threatening for the tree?
Well, sometimes it can bore through the growing point. Sometimes the feeding is so severe that it can kill the tree. If the population of them is very high, it has the potential to kill 50% of the coconut trees. And coconut trees are very important ornamental plant here in Hawaii. Resorts, hotels, golf courses, beaches. Can you imagine how Hawaii would look without coconut
and
trees?
what's amazing about that, and we've seen that happen in other places, they're so beautiful, and we take them for granted. But isn't it amazing how they grow? I mean, just put the seed on the ground, and pretty soon there's a tree there. But they seem to have a growth spurt that it takes a long time for that tree to get mature and then give fruit. So it's not in other words,
it takes a few years. It takes a few years.
Yes.
There's a 3-year coconut. There's one variety that can give you the first coconut in 3 years, but the majority it would take more than that.
You got to be very,
5
very patient.
years, yeah.
Okay. So anyway, that's a thing. So one would be able to, I guess, go online or do it. But what does Sandwich Isle do? I mean, if they come upon a client that's got a lot of ornamentals, like a hotel or a resort or just a big piece of property, how do you go about either managing that pest or getting rid of it?
Well, Sandwich Isles right now has not really worked on coconut rhinoceros beetle because coconut rhinoceros beetle is not very widespread. It is in some areas in Oahu and University of Hawaii, USDA APHIS are dealing with this problem. However, this problem will probably spread. If you have suspicions that your tree might have coconut rhinoceros beetle, you can contact the appropriate authorities. You can also call Sandwich Isles, and we can do systemic treatment, insecticide treatment that will protect your tree.
Okay, and that number just happens to be 456-7716. 456-7716. After we come back after a short little break, Dr. Quintanilla and I are going to talk about a couple of things. Nasty, nasty things. Not your fault if you get them. Hard to get rid of, hard to find sometimes. Bed bugs. And also, believe it or not, the problem with some pests that bother ornamental stuff is also a big problem, particularly if you're in the business. And how to get rid of those things and how to find them is a big question. We got more of What's Bugging You coming up after short little words from our friends Simply at Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions.
Simply put, if we cannot solve your pest problem, we'll keep coming back at no additional cost until you are completely satisfied. And if, for any reason, you're not completely satisfied, we'll refund your last payment, no questions asked. Remember, pests can no longer be considered simply a nuisance. Keeping pests out of your home is critical for your health and the health of your family. Don't settle for anything less than the best. That's Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions. Expect more and get it.
Okay, it's sort of interesting. Marisol and I are talking on and off the air about these pests all the time, and one of the things that we want to talk about now is it's a big problem for a lot of people, and that's bed bugs. And sometimes you say a prayer, be nice to me and don't let the bed bugs bite. A bed bug infestation, particularly where they're kids, can be a real disaster. And as you know, some hotels, they'll virtually go out of business if the word gets out that they've got bed bugs. But,
they can get sued.
But Marisol, it's sort of interesting, and I've talked to Michael both about this before. Back in the day, there used to be maybe get one or two questions about bed bugs every week or something. And now it seems to be a big deal that we're not solving. We have a big bed bug problem in Hawaii, and how are we dealing with it? And so let's talk about that a little bit. What's some of the things that can be done?
Okay. Well, bed bugs are a big problem. They're very difficult to manage. Almost impossible for a person to get rid of them on their own. Mm-hmm. They're very difficult.
First of all, they're very tiny.
They're
hide,
very
right?
tiny.
Yeah.
They hide very well. Foggers, etc. This bug bombs. This bug bombs. They do not work because the insecticide does not get to them because they're hiding. Plus, they're like ninjas. They're hiding, and you won't realize you have them until you generally have a high population. So they're difficult to control.
Sometimes, from what I understand, when your people get there to inspect or to deal with a problem, it's huge. Even people that live there have no idea. Can they live a long time? Sometimes they say that they can live for months without biting somebody. What's the lifespan of a bed bug?
They can live more than a year. Without feeding on anybody.
I'm shocked because of two things. When we're talking about the dengue and the Zika and everything else and these mosquitoes earlier, these mosquitoes' lifespan is only for a few days.
Yes.
And this other insect, which is terribly invasive, lasts a long time without eating.
Yeah, well, during that time that they're not feeding, they're not reproducing. Okay. All they're doing is kind of hibernating, just waiting. They're just waiting for somebody to show up and lay down on that bed to get their blood meal. So during that time, they're really not active. They're just waiting. So they're just hanging on.
One thing that I saw, it was a terrible thing I saw in a documentary on television once, was somebody that gets in an infestation of bed bugs, how many bites they can get. And, maybe they don't wake you up. Maybe it doesn't because so you can explain, is there any pain when one bites you? Can you even feel it? Or are they so small?
You do not feel them.
Yeah.
They give you anesthesia.
No kidding.
Yes. They put you anesthesia and then they inject you with an anticoagulant so that your blood flows freely through their mouth parts, so you do not feel it. They feed for about 3 to 12 minutes. They get their abdomen full of blood. Once they're full, they drop off, they walk off, and they go to the hiding spot to digest that blood.
It's so interesting because you were talking on a previous program. We talked a fair bit about how these things, are social insects. Your ants, and particularly you explained about termites, how they're pretty much a social insect. Is there anything to indicate that is a bed bug also a social insect?
No, not really. They do not have complex societies like ants and termites. They do, however, they do aggregate. You do find them. They seem to like to be near one another, so you will find them in clumps.
Yeah.
In underneath the bed and mattress, but there's no. There's no real social behavior.
Okay, so it's not
they
like
all can mate.
Yeah.
They all can mate. They all feed. There's not like the adults feeding your young or anything. Everybody fends for themselves.
I know that a lot of people are very embarrassed. They think it's something that they did. In other words, they think it's, from what I understand, there's so many ways in Hawaii. We have issues in homeless shelters because maybe people have bed bugs and then they come in there, spend the night, and then pretty soon it's on the mattress and somebody else uses the mattress. When somebody suspects they have a problem, first of all, how do you even have an idea that you have a problem? And second of all, once you've identified it, what are some of the steps that a homeowner can do to get rid of them? Is it a do-it-yourself deal, or do they always need professional help?
Most of the time, you need professional help. I mean, there's a Spanish joke. A guy saw his house burning, and he was so happy that his house was burning. He said, "I'm so happy for the bed bugs.
Yeah.
I'm so happy for the bed bugs." Of course, it rhymes in Spanish. But if you burn your house, you'll get rid of it. Then for sure, it's very difficult to get rid of. You probably need professional help, and bed bugs are very, very difficult to get rid of.
What is the most common way that a bed bug gets transported into somebody's home? Is it from traveling? From what I understand, there are little things you can do now if you're going to travel to a place, even if you don't think they have bed bugs, not to put your suitcase on the floor. These kind of things, because don't they come in very various ways?
Yeah, they will climb up into your suitcase. They can go in the grooves of your shoes. They can be on your clothes. They hitch a ride on you, and then they get down. When you get home, they'll get off.
Yeah.
They are hitchhikers, and they don't ask for permissions to get a ride.
Where do they mostly are found in homes? I've been told before that sometimes it's usually pretty much in the bedroom and pretty much where people sleep only because of the mattress or the availability or whatever. But do they permeate the whole house, or do they stay in certain places?
Well, I've done several bed bug jobs just lately, last week. And just last week, I saw a lot of bed bugs behind a picture frame.
Really?
They can be in picture frame. They are commonly found in electric outlets, underneath the baseboards, in the USB ports of computers.
Really?
Yes.
Wow, my goodness.
Yeah, any little spot, they will hide. Any little spot.
Is it my imagination, or are we talking about this because it's become a bigger problem? Like years ago, like I said, just when we introduced this segment, there was maybe 1 or 2 calls a week or even a month. Now it's much more. Is it awareness, or is it a growing problem, or both?
It is a growing problem.
Yeah.
bed bugs were almost extinct in the United States, especially in the time where DDT was being widely used. Bed bugs were almost extinct. Now they're making a strong comeback.
Yeah.
New York is the number one city for bed bugs.
It's a number one city for a lot of things, but
Yeah.
my goodness, I think it's alarming because I do know that we are getting more politically correct, environmentally conscious, and all of these things, and the pest industry has been losing a number of their very important weapons in eradication. Do you think, you're an entomologist, you know what's going on in research. Are there strides being made in more human-friendly pesticides that can still cure the problem or still fix the problem?
For sure. There's a lot of the pesticides that we commonly use as sandwich house that are commonly used for pest control companies have low mammalian toxicity. Now, they're safe for humans and for animals. And they're very effective against insects, but they're not as miraculous as some of the pesticides that we have lost.
Sure.
But they are effective, and now the genome of the bedbug has been sequenced recently. 2 papers came out. So I would suppose that in a while, in a few years, because scientists know now the genome of the bedbug, they'll be able to attack it in more precise manner.
Yeah, I think that's the key, because I know everybody's worried about chemicals going into the aquifer, into the water supply, and everything else. But sometimes there's a very thin line, isn't there, about what sort of trade-offs you have to make, because sometimes the problem is so big that you actually have to do something because it's more health-threatening than the chemicals can be in the environment. Or is that what the manufacturers of the chemicals want you to think?
Well, the chemicals that are used in homes presently have caution labels. That means that they have a lower danger compared to other. The ones that we commonly use for bed bugs are relatively safe, and if they're used according to the label, they do not have high impact on the environment if you follow the label and use them appropriately. So we can get rid of bed bugs and have minimal effect on the health of the people in there and have minimal effect on the environment.
Yeah, I can't help but remember back when I was a kid, there used to be the fogger truck went around the neighborhood every month or whatever it was to spray for mosquitoes.
That was DDT,
yeah,
probably.
and we used to ride around behind them on the bicycle and think it was great to be in the clouds, and all of us made it. But I do know that it was a big blow to the extermination business when that stuff was determined to be a real big problem. But it's been many, many years, and a lot of new products have been developed, but none of them seem to be as effective as that one was. Maybe there was a trade-off that we could have looked at a little bit more. Are there ways to think that we're going to find something that is as effective as that was, but not be as damaging to the environment or to our health?
Oh, I'm sure. Human beings are very intelligent. So with all the scientists working on these kind of projects, I know that we will conquer.
Yeah, that's good. That's good information. I think, then the other thing would be that people shouldn't be embarrassed about calling or making an appointment to get an inspection.
No.
And they have this concern because I know a lot of people, they're embarrassed because they think it's something to do with social class,
no,
income.
No,
You find them everywhere, right?
Bed bugs do not discriminate.
Yeah.
Bed bugs feed on blood, only on blood. They do not need any dirt. They do not need any food. They do not need any water.
Yeah.
So if they come to a spick and span clean house, in the richest house in Hawaii, in the richest house, if they arrive there, they can survive very well only if there's a human being sleeping in the bed. They do not need dirt. They do not need mess.
Or
they
food.
do not need
food.
Coming
in your closet and eating stuff. Yeah.
All they need is you. And they do not care. You can be black, you can be white, you can be Asian, you can be Pacific Islander. They do not discriminate. You can be rich, you can be poor. They like all of us.
Yeah,
they love all of us, and they do not discriminate.
You know, some people, I know you've heard this before. Some people, Marisol, say, "Oh, mosquitoes don't bite me." You know, I mean, I'm lucky. They bite my neighbors, they bite my sister, but they don't bite me. So I guess that there are some of us that are not as desirable a meal for a mosquito.
Yeah.
But what about a bed bug? Does a bed bug, is it everybody gets it? If they're there, they're going to get bitten?
Yes, to the best of my knowledge, yes. There could be, bed bugs are attracted to people because certain smells, CO2 levels and temperature,
right.
etc.
So maybe some people
I'm
get
sure there's maybe some people who are slightly more attractive to others. But I think if the bed bug is hungry and you're laying on the bed,
yeah, you're gonna get
I
it.
think you'll do.
But the interesting thing to me was, even though you've explained this, and maybe to finish up on this subject for right now, although we could go on forever, and I got a couple of other bedbug questions for you real quickly, that it seems to be up to them. They're discriminatory. I mean, I don't know when they need to eat. You say that they can be dormant for a very long time, but then there must be a need. They must have to go find something.
Oh, they're only dormant when there's no food available. Let's say you have bed bugs in your house.
Yeah.
And then you travel to the mainland and you are gone for 6 months. During that time, they have no food available, so they're just waiting.
It's
they just
very
go
interesting.
And then when you come back, then they feed.
Yeah. So if they smell you, they're going to bite you.
Yeah, and they feed when you're sleeping, so you don't feel anything. They wait until the time that you are sleeping the deepest.
Yeah.
For most people, that would be like 2 or 3 in the morning. When you're sleeping the deepest still, but you won't feel anything. They'll put you anesthesia.
Yeah, it's amazing because you've said this, and I think that also that you've also witnessed some of the places you had to go and do to work this, where some people get very, very badly bitten. I mean, especially little babies. And it must break your heart to see a little child in a crib that's been infested with bed bugs and gets all bitten up.
Yes, it's psychologically very difficult for mothers. You know, I've seen mothers cry. It is very difficult. They know it's traumatizing. They don't know. They are afraid to go to sleep because they know that the bed bugs will feed on them. Elderly people are especially vulnerable to bed bugs.
I'm wondering if that has something to do with maybe sometimes they spend more time in bed than not so. The more often you're there, the more the smell is going out and the bed bugs are going to come and get you.
Yes, I think there's a lot of factors that can make the elderly more vulnerable to bed bugs. One, they spend spend more time in bed. You can find a lot of bed bugs in their chairs, in the sofas. I was going to ask you about that.
They
can be on the chair. They can be on the sofa, and many times, you can catch a bed bug infestation if you very often change the sheets and look at the mattress. If you inspect, you'll find the problem early. If somebody is not thinking of bed bugs, they will not find them, and they can get to huge populations before you find them.
How big is a bed bug? For those that don't know, what do they look like?
About the size of an apple seed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. Now, obviously, the more often you change your bedding and inspect it, but are there some things you can do to make the place less hospitable for them? I mean, there's some people that say, well, just put a big plastic bag on your mattress, you'll be okay. Seal it.
Well, encasement works because they won't be able to hide in your mattress, but they can still hide somewhere else.
Yeah.
They can hide in the picture frame. They can hide behind the headboard. They can hide in the sofa, etc. They can hide behind the floorboards.
Yeah.
So
it's pretty much killed off the used bed business, right? I mean, from what I understand, there's so much fear out there in Hawaii right now that there's a lot of people that might be selling the mattress because they're moving away or something, and people won't even look at it because they say, well, if it's used, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Is there a reason to be concerned about that? I would think.
Well, there's actually, you are a higher risk of getting them if you get secondhand furniture, and not only beds, sofas, chairs, etc. But it is not necessary to get them that way. You can think a person that has bed bugs or that has bed bugs in their home, they put their purse down or their suitcase in a hotel.
Yeah.
Those bed bugs get off at the hotel, go in the headboard, and then you go to that hotel. That bed bug will hitch a ride on your suitcase, go back home with you. And you can go in the most beautiful hotel. It doesn't really matter. The bed bugs, like I said, they do not discriminate. They do not care if the hotel is rich or poor. Or they're not bothered by that.
You know, friends, if you have even the slightest suspicion that you have a bed bug problem in your place, the quicker you deal with it, the better. It's a long haul, and there's a step-by-step process. For example, Marisol, you do the training at Sandwich Isle. You train people how to go through their inspection and their eradication. What is the level of knowledge that your Sandwich Isle folks have, so that if they get a suspected bed bug infestation, they go out and do an inspection, and then what happens?
Well, they inspect the areas that are most commonly infected with bed bugs. You know, the mattress, the bed, and the box spring. They check in the seams. What they're looking for is blood specks. You know, when the bed bug feeds on blood, then they defecate. You know, their feces are blood, and they leave these stains. They leave these stains in the bedding and in the mattress, etc. And they're looking for live bed bugs, eggs, and etc. If they find bed bugs, they steam. They steam the mattress.
Yeah, because you said before, heats the worker here.
Bed bugs are very, very susceptible to heat. They can only bear about 113 Fahrenheit. After that, they die.
Okay, that means don't try this at home now. Indiscriminate measures of heat, that if you don't know what you're doing. I do know that the equipment that you have and the method you use is you're extremely confident that you're going to not burn somebody's house down, and yet you're going to kill the bed bugs. I mean, there's a lot of people that think, well, it's heat, so I'll just turn up the heater. Can somebody in a home turn up the heater and kill bed bugs? Your heaters will never go up that high, will they?
I think most thermostats don't go to 120.
No. There are some times here in Hawaii where your attics can get that hot. You know, it can get very, very hot.
But the bed bugs are not in the attic, but that's not where you
that's the
sleep.
key.
They like to be where we are.
Okay. And then generally what happens is, after a period of time, do you re-inspect the property to make sure that you've got the edge on it? How do you know when you've arrested or minimized the infestation?
Well, all bed bug jobs generally take at least 2 follow-ups. So it's 3 treatments. The first treatment, and then first follow-up, and second
then you get
follow-up.
the babies that weren't, you know.
Yeah, and then every single time you inspect. And if you find live, you keep on adding follow-ups until there's no bed bugs at all. We do not only use heat. We use several types of insecticides that have different modes of action.
Sure.
Some of them have residual effect. So when the eggs hatch, etc., they're also affected by the insecticide. So we use the steaming and several kinds of insecticides. And we also treat headboards and the electric plugs.
Yeah. You use it in the USB port on your laptop. Oh, my goodness.
There's some laptops that are full of bed bugs, especially people that like to keep their laptop on the bed.
Yeah, and who doesn't when they're traveling, right?
Yeah.
That blood. Okay, when we come back, we're going to talk about other things. These are pests that you find in ornamental flowers and things. And there's not does it just ruin the flowers, but it can also be another problem. And this is just another one of the many areas covered by our friends at Sandwich Isles. And you can find out what's bugging you. You can find some answers to your questions, just like we call ourselves the answer. Sandwich Isle is the answer for pests in your house, and your home is important. Check this.
There's a good chance that your house may be the single largest investment that you ever make. It's also your home. It's where you and your family spend a lot of time. It's more than just a place. There are many types of homes, but for our purposes today, there are really only 2 types of homes: those that have termites and those that will eventually get termites. That's because there's no such thing as a termite-proof home. Call Sandwich Isle today and schedule your free inspection. At Sandwich Isle, we believe the best way to protect your home from unwanted pests is not through control, but through prevention. Pest prevention is a unique concept perfected by Sandwich Isle in 1997. Over the years, we have continued to improve our service effectiveness with the many technological advances in our industry. Today, Sandwich Isle's pest prevention is recognized as one of the most environmentally responsible and effective approaches in the industry. Expect more and get it with Sandwich Isle Pest Solutions.
Yep, the ants go marching in, the ants go marching out. Well, if you like what you're learning, it's primarily because Dr. Marisol Quintanilla is a board-certified entomologist. She is also the director of training at Sandwich Isle. And when you get a job at Sandwich Isle, you take a leap into the future. It's sort of interesting that we have to discuss this sometimes, Marisol, but, this is an issue or a condition that really doesn't go away. I mean, pests are going to be here as long as we're on the planet. But what Michael was just saying in some of the commercials that we talk about is prevention, anticipation. So there's a lot of things that people have to do, even if they don't see a problem. They already have. It's just a matter of time. They're going to get it sooner or later.
For sure.
Yeah, which means there's lots of opportunities. Do you find that while you're training that people that when they get a job at Sandwich Isle, first of all, it's just a job when they first get it.
Yeah.
And then second of all, they learn, hey, wait a minute. There's a lot that comes with this. There's a lot of satisfaction, and there's a lot of really gratification if you figure out what's wrong with somebody's property and then learn how to deal with it.
Yeah, it's kind of like CSI,
Yeah.
You need to be an investigator. You need to think. You need to know the pest biology. You need to know the pest. It's like being in war. You need to know the enemy's tactics in order to overcome the enemy. So it's fun. It's intellectually satisfying, and it is something that requires knowledge and requires constant learning. So it's like going to college.
Yeah, and it's to that point where it's such an honorable job to do. And I've learned, and we have some favorites. Sandwich Isle has been treating our house. We've had the Centricon for years and years. We've had a couple of occasions to have folks out and dealing with our problems. Actually, the guys that come out for a regular basis, they know my yard better than me. They know my house better than me. And I know that your people, sometimes it's pretty much regional. You work in a certain area, so you have a client list that you service every month, and so you know what to look for.
Yes.
Yeah, on each job. Okay, now, one of the things that we are fiercely proud of in Hawaii is our gardens. How green does your garden grow? We're all got green thumbs. I can tell you right now that your leader, our esteemed friend Michael Botha, will tell you the first thing he did in his property is get rid of the bromeliads because it was mosquitoes. Let's talk about some of the pests and some of the problems that we have with ornamentals. First of all, is it a big deal?
Oh, yeah. Anybody who has tried to grow a garden in Hawaii will know that there's some difficult challenges. If you grow ornamental garden or vegetable garden, you will face some challenges that you did not face in the mainland. We
got a list, folks, and it's mainly because there's a couple of things that happen in the mainland that don't have here. Number one is winter, right?
Yes,
winter will freeze
winter helps.
Things. Winter helps a lot in pest control.
That's right.
But
it brings down the pest populations to a low level, then the numbers need to climb up.
Yep.
Over here, they can remain permanently high.
That's because we say we have two seasons in Hawaii, summer and almost summer. I mean, it's just terrible that that's the case. But so they often say that's the price you pay to live in paradise, right? That's what has to happen. But I know that there's some dangers. Some of it is just visual, and some of it is more than that because it'll actually kill the plants. So let's talk about some of the most common ones and some of the things, first of all, that people can do on their own, and then if it gets out of control, what Sandwich Isle can get them on a maintenance program. Do you find that people that have Centricon, you'd be best to look around and see if there's anything else that you can have regularly treated?
Most people here in Hawaii have quite a few ornamental plants. They have plumeria, hibiscus, etc.
Yeah.
And if you look,
I
at
love
the
I
plumerias.
love the way. Now, this is where Marisol's cute accent comes in from Chile. Hibiscus is hibiscus to us, but it's our national flower. And if you take a hibiscus, right? No, I love it. If you take a hibiscus, and almost always you look inside, there's ants in there.
You know why the ants are there?
Nope. Is it sugar?
The ants actually are feeding on honeydew produced by the mealybugs and the whitefly that are in the hibiscus. Mm-hmm. These insects, mealybugs, scales, whitefly, they all belong to the order Homoptera. This order, their mouth is like a syringe.
Okay.
They insert it into the plant. They suck the plant sap. Mm-hmm. The plant sap has a lot of sugar and a lot of water and very low concentration of protein and minerals. So the insect does not need so much sugar and water, so it eliminates the sugar and water and keeps the things that it wants, the protein, the minerals, etc. So the sugar water is very attractive to ants. So they have developed a close relationship. Ants protect these insects, the mealybugs, the aphids, the whitefly. They protect them.
Yeah, instead of eating them, they
do not eat them.
The plant.
They actually, the ants act as your defenders. When a ladybug comes, when a parasitoid wasp comes that is going to attack the whitefly,
right.
The ants will go and attack them and protect them. When bad weather comes and it's stormy, they will actually remove them from the plant and take them to the nest, protect them.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
All these little social things that go on there that you have no idea about.
So if you don't get rid of the ants, you will not get rid of the problem.
Yeah, so there you go, gang. You better figure this out. And then the other thing is, there's some wives' tales and some anecdotal things that say, oh, just do this and do that. I've tried a lot of times with whitefly. First of all, to know why they call them whitefly. Because when you shake the thing, you see all of this dust. That's actually flies, isn't it? Tiny little flies.
And they're not actually flies. They flies belong to the order Diptera, and they have 2 wings. These have 4 wings, and they belong to the order Homoptera.
They're very small.
They're very small. They're not actually at all related to flies. They're related to aphids and mealybugs, etc. But they are white and they do fly, so they call them whitefly.
Now, the interesting thing to me, what eats them? I mean, you're talking about how the ants are going to protect them. So why are whitefly there? Besides that, to ruin my plants, why are they there?
Well, they're there because they want to feed on your plant.
Yeah, of course. No plants,
that's
no
what they are. Yeah. So they're there because they want to feed on the plant. Who feeds on them? There's some parasitic wasp, parasitoid wasp, very small microscopic wasp that lay their eggs inside of the whitefly and insects such as those, like mealybugs, etc. Lay eggs inside of them. Those eggs develop, and the larva of that parasitoid wasp will feed on the inside of the whitefly. On the inside, and kill it, and then hatch out another parasitoid wasp to go do the same thing. So they are actually those parasitoid wasps are beneficial. Many of them have been imported to Hawaii as biological control. They have been imported on purpose in order to reduce some of this pest population. The reason why some of these pests, like whitefly and mealybugs, and some of these pests are such a problem here in Hawaii, is that there's not a lot of biocontrol in Hawaii because there's not a lot of biodiversity. These pests that come, let's say a new whitefly species comes here, they come with no enemies. They come in a new land.
That's a big problem, right?
There's no cats in America, something like that. They come in a new land, no predators, plenty food. They can reproduce to enormous proportions. So then scientists, people in the University of Hawaii, the USDA, etc., the USDA, they actually find parasitoids that in their native country,
I get it. Sure.
where that whitefly came from,
That's
and
a balance,
import it.
though. That's a really dangerous balance, right? So you really have to study, okay, we know that this attacks this. We bring it to Hawaii, it's going to take care of us. You may end up with a bigger problem than when you started. So I do know that now there's science to suggest what is controllable and what's not. Aren't we looking at that in some respects with things like coqui frog and other things that maybe they don't have too many enemies, so once they take a hold of someplace, they go crazy. They just multiply like nuts.
Yeah. Well, the coqui frog is that's a different story. What with insects, like with whitefly and some of the insects, you can get pretty good precision with biological control because there's some of this little parasitoid wasp that will only feed and will only live on whitefly or these such insects. They do not attack other things. So you look for biocontrol agents that are very specific, and there's a lot of testing that needs to be done to make sure they will not go on native species or so that they will not disrupt the balance.
And one of the things that I'm most proud of is if you are so lucky as to get a job at Sandwich Isles, you can learn through Marisol not only the passion that she has for the work that she's done in getting her degree and becoming this board-certified entomologist and trainer, is that it's fascinating to see how this works, because what you've actually told me is that let's say that there is a whitefly and there's a parasite that can come in and kill them, but it's limited. It only eats whitefly. So as the whitefly meal availability disappears, so too does the parasite, because it doesn't have something it can eat in its place.
No, what happens is that you start getting an up and down curve. The whitefly population goes up and the parasitoid wasp follows it. When the whitefly population crashes, the parasitoid crashes afterwards. But again, if the whitefly population increases, they increase right after this. They're always following that curve. So
okay, well, when you say ornamentals, these beautiful things that we look at, are there problems associated with whiteflies over and above just their unsightliness? In other words, are they actually killing these plants?
Yes.
And isn't that the biggest problem, is not the way they look, but the way they kill?
Well, most people have these ornamental plants to look beautiful. So if the plant looks ugly, you kind of lost the point of having the plant, right? Because ornamental is decoration. So whitefly can make the plant look very unsightly. Because remember we were talking about honeydew, that sugar water that they excrete? That honeydew falls on top of the leaves, and mold, sooty mold, this black mold, will grow on top of that sugar water that they excrete. So then you get a plumeria tree or hibiscus plant or any kind of most ornamental plants. You'll get them covered in this black sooty mold, and it certainly doesn't look beautiful.
We have a beautiful Tahitian gardenia. It is beautiful. The flowers are beautiful, but it's got that black stuff on it. And your guys had said, "Well, this is a problem," And, and there's really little that can be done.
And there's a lot of things that can be done. I can give you some pointers.
Yeah, well, we're gonna make sure to find out about that. But what I'm saying is, when it gets that bad, it's very hard for some wives' tale remedy to fix it. You really need to get it taken care of, because otherwise, don't you create a big, huge home for all of these things that are going to go on to other plants?
The truth is, the whitefly population is so high in Hawaii. Every one of your neighbors has it.
Yeah.
So if you control yours, they will come back. So it's a permanent. You have to do permanent treatment.
That's why we talk about it every day on this program, folks. And one of the mantras of Sandwich Isle is through education and control and prevention. It's probably pretty hard to prevent a whitefly, because if you buy a plant, it's probably going to be in there, and then you have to.
Yeah, if it's susceptible, unless there's some plants that are not susceptible. Yeah. But if you plant if you have something that whiteflies like to feed on, watch out. You're going to get them.
So that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the program. First of all, We hope you come back and tell everybody that we're at noon on Saturdays and 1 o'clock on Sundays. And if you need to know more about what we're talking about here, get onto the website, sandwichaisle.com, right?
Yes.
Or call them up at 456-7716. 456-7716. That's going to do it. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you again next time on What's Bugging You.
Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time. And if something is bugging you, jump online and get debugged at sandwichaisle.com. That's sandwichaisle.com.